Hey there, I'm Brandon, and this is Dirt Church Devotional. Have you ever noticed that I guess it's human nature. We want to take shortcuts, but we want to get full credit. We want to do either or, not both and sometimes. And I want to challenge you today to not put an or where God puts an and. In Colossians chapter 3, Paul is writing to the church in Colossus, and they're having some issues, and he's encouraging them, and he's reminding them of all the great things that God has done for them. But they got to deal with one another. They got to deal with people. And people, we can be a pain to one another, right? And so in Colossians chapter 3, verse 13, Paul writes these words. He says, "Bear with one another in love and forgive one another. As Christ has forgiven you, so you must forgive one another." Well, sometimes it's easier to do one than the other. Sometimes it's easier to bear with somebody than to, forgive somebody. How many times have you heard somebody say, well, I don't have to like them to love them. I just have to love them. The Bible says I need to love, so I'll love, but that doesn't mean I have to like. Kind of missing the point when it comes to bear with. Now, think about this. How many marriages have you seen where the husband and wife, it's a dysfunctional marriage. It really, hey, God's not a fan of divorce, but there's some marriages that never should have happened in the first place. And they decide to stay together for the sake of the kids. You're going to bear with one another, but they're not going to forgive. They're not going to love. And so the kids grow up in this dysfunctional house as if the only options is to grow up in a dysfunctional house altogether or grow up in separate homes, dysfunction. There is a third option. It's very hard, very difficult because you're dealing with people, but it's to forgive, to reconcile, to move forward. If you can't, well then, hey, move on. But back to the point. Let's not put an or where God put an and. He wants us to bear with one another. That means we got to put up with, deal with, and understand they're putting up with you and me as well, and forgive one another. And the crux is on how we forgive, and that's as Christ forgave us. And that means completely, totally. We don't have to, by the way, wait for them to apologize. We don't have to wait for them to ask for forgiveness before we offer it. They're not going to get the benefit of it until they receive it, just like a person's not going to get the benefit of Jesus' death and resurrection until they receive it. But the offer's there on the table. He did the work, and he offers it. All I have to do is forgive you or whomever has offended me from my heart as Christ forgave me, which brings up the question, how did he forgive me? Well, he forgave me completely. The Bible says that he remembers my sin no more, which, by the way, is a lot different than forgive and forget. God does not forgive and forget. God doesn't forget. If he could forget, he would have problems. I don't want to serve a God that forgets stuff. He might forget that he forgave me, but he chooses not to remember. That's so much more powerful. And this is how I need to forgive somebody. I need to choose not to remember their failures. It's like this. I got to quit saying, you always do this. If I forgive you, I forgive you. And I have to choose not to hold it against you. If you're going to forgive somebody, forgive them from the heart. Well, how many times do I have to do that? Peter asked Jesus, how many times do I have to forgive my brother? Up to 7 times? And Jesus' response was, no, 70 times 7. And he didn't mean 490 times, because he continued and said, as long as your brother comes up to you, if he sins against you 7 times in one day, and 7 times he comes back and says, forgive him. Forgive them. Forgive them completely. Forgive them totally. Don't remember it against them. So here's a challenge for you and me. Let's bear with one another. Let's put up with one another, knowing that we all got issues, and let's forgive one another as Christ forgave us. Don't put an or where God put an and. Chew on that. We'll talk to you next time.